I'm about to bring you in on some sauce, and this is what we actually go over with our team as we're training them. This is one of our internal SOPs we use for strategy and educating our team members before we start taking on accounts. This one specifically is how we do keyword math. Now, keyword math is super important because it allows you to save a ton of time, money, and energy knowing exactly what you can afford on the keyword side. And this allows you to figure out which specific keywords you want to target based on a cost basis after you've established the quality behind them. So as you know, their CPC fluctuates per keyword. There might be certain keywords that are too expensive, might be some that are lower cost, and you want to exclude the ones that are too expensive because if you run those without thinking, even if you get conversions at a good rate, it's going to kill your CPA, your cost per acquisition, and it's not going to make sense anyway. So this allows you to prevent the ability of spending money on keywords that shouldn't be spent on because they're too expensive. So going into here, as we can see, I won't spend too much time over explaining all of this, but the practical steps for going into this is going to be one, identifying potential keywords. You can use certain keyword tools. Most of the times we're using Google's internal keyword planner to figure out what keywords make the most sense. Most of the tools like SEMrush, SpyFu, whatever they actually are pulling data from the keyword planner anyways, so better to get it from the source. The first thing you want to do is establish which keywords are high intent and qualified, and then you're going to move on to calculating the estimated CPC. This is pretty simple because it'll give you a low and high average of what the CPC are for the keywords in the actual tool. A lot of the times it's right in between, so we just take the average between those. If low is $2, high is $8, maybe it's around $5, right? So a lot of times we just place it right in the middle. Next is going to be assessing your conversion rate. Conversion rate, you want to base it off of the average conversion rate of the assets already. Now, if you're not running Google ads, you can base it off of other paid traffic type sources. So if you're running Facebook ads and you see for your e-com store or your assets, the average conversion rate is a certain percentage, you're going to want to use that because it's proven based off of traffic that's coming from paid going to your assets. You don't want to base it always off of like organic because organic could be branded traffic. Branded traffic is always going to be higher on the conversion rate side. So you don't want to use that as your leading indicator, as cold traffic is always going to be less than that. So next is going to be determining ROAS, which we're going to talk about later in this sheet and being able to actually calculate that. And then the last thing, which I kind of already talked about, is using longer tail keywords. Really, this is around making sure you're going after the keywords that are actually going to convert or should convert if you have the right assets or product. If you know the keywords high intent, long tail, and it's literally someone looking for the exact product you're selling, then you know it's going to convert if you have the right assets around the product, or at least the right product for what they're searching. So we'll go into this calculation. So it's a pretty simple equation that we use, and you don't have to do this for every single keyword. You can actually do this once and kind of reverse engineer it, because you just need to know for the cost per acquisition that you need for your product, what does that have to be at as a base? And then of course, what does the cost per click on average with the conversion rate you have need to be? That way you don't exceed that cost per acquisition. So a lot of times we're going to start with your cost per acquisition you need for profitability. Let's say it's an average of $100 average order value for your store. And because of that, you need the cost per acquisition to be at $30. We're going to use the cost per acquisition of $30 to reverse engineer this and then figure out what the cost per click has to be on average to be able to fit within that. So I won't do it exactly on the screen, but what we're going to do is we would take the cost per acquisition on average, which we just talked about how you'd find that. We'll put $30 here. For the conversion rate, we'll take the conversion rate on average for your store. Let's say most stores are 1% that are doing pretty well. We'll put that here. And then we're going to solve for cost per click. So we'll talk about this really quick. So if the conversion rate is 1%, that's going to be 0.01. And then you're going to multiply that by 100. That's going to take it to 1. You're going to take 100 and divide that by 1, which in this case will still be 100. That means that you need 100 people to your website to convert a sale. And then we're going to solve for cost per acquisition. So you're going to take the cost per acquisition. I'm going to take out a calculator real quick so I don't mess this one up for you, of 30. And we're going to take 100 divided by 30. And that means on average we need $3.33 for the cost per click to equate, if all those numbers are consistent, for cost per acquisition of $30, right? So we know now that we need to go after keywords that on average are charging about $3.30 as a medium between the high and low bids. And if we do that, then when we look at the actual keyword planner, we'll be able to go through and click, okay, this one makes sense, average cost per click is going to be $3. This one makes sense, it's going to be $2. This one does not make sense, average cost per click is $5. And that way you'll be able to figure out exactly what you can add and what don't make sense to add. Now, there are exceptions to that, right? Maybe certain keywords can cost more, but they'll convert at a higher rate. So let's say if a certain keyword costs $5 for cost per click, but your conversion rate on that keyword is 2%, then it actually brings down your cost per acquisition substantially, and then it would actually make sense to target that. So I'd always start with what makes sense on the front end, and then later test some of the more expensive terms to see if the conversion rate on those terms would be higher, which would make sense to actually lead to the cost per acquisition you need. So pretty simple when you use this equation. It'll give you a really good base of what to go for number-wise. If you have any questions on the equation or how it works, please feel free to drop it in the comment section. I'll get to it myself. Appreciate you watching this video.